Welcome to another Flick and the Bosman show. And did you expect to hear some Manfred Mann coming to start the show there, Boz?
I did not, but of course that is a cover of a Bruce song, and Bruce made a cameo in the game in one of the commercials. So there you go.
So I thought I could sneak that by you, but also the halftime, the main performer was The Weeknd, which I'm not familiar with all of his works, but one of his hits is "Blinding Lights," and that's close to "Blinded by the Light."
Aha, there you go.
And apparently, some of the halftime show did blind some people at home, or at least gave them some headaches. And if you were a Kansas City fan, perhaps the whole game gave you a headache.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, thank God for them that they won last year because Kansas City had been a long time between drinks of water, and uh, it would have been a little bit hard to take if Brady did what for Tampa Bay what Montana failed to do for the Chiefs. But they won last year. You expect to get back there next year, and it's hard to feel too bad for them.
I have the hard hitting questions for you. I'm going to start with a two-word question. What happened?
Well, I think there's a number of things uh, coming into the game. There were three things that I completely undervalued and or overlooked, which both seem like they're kind of the same thing. Uh, One is I did not appreciate how devastated the Kansas City offensive line was, uh, and how particularly, I guess it was at the end of the Buffalo game that they lost Fisher, and that well, okay, yeah, their line is devastated, but that's not new, but it was new. It was the latest thing was like an unknown as to how big an impact that was, and against this team with two great pass rushers, that was a big thing. So that was thing
And
number one.
and Fisher's not just a run of the mill lineman. He's a all pro, top round draft pick, darn good lineman. So maybe that
Yeah,
was, just too much to overcome. But
and
yes,
then
continue.
tied with that is that Mahomes' toe, and I saw the headline on Sunday morning that he is set to have surgery on his toe after the game, and I'm like, that doesn't sound good. Like when you put those two, like one, he's not going to have protection, and two, he's not going to be able to run the way he needs to. That's a bad combination. But in my head, I'm still thinking, all the hype was the Mahomes myth of he's Superman. And I use the word myth meaning not a fake story because he is Superman when he's healthy. And you saw a bit of that in some of his, like, falling over, throwing a dart, and hitting a guy in the face mask kind of throws. He was really good yesterday, and his team was not. So even hobbled and so forth, he should have probably had better numbers than he did. And he hit a number of guys that were open and hit some guys that weren't open, and he hit them in the hands anyway or in the head, and they still couldn't come up with the ball. So those are two things that are tied together. And then the third thing I'll just throw in there that was a pregame thing that never bodes well for a team and coming into Super Bowl when something like this happens was Andy Reid's son having the car accident. It's just one of those distractions that I mean, I don't mean to underplay it as far as the human tragedy of this young child who's I believe still in the hospital as far as I know. Um, that's not what I'm talking about. I want to ignore that. It's a terrible tragedy. But for the game, that kind of thing always seems to end up uh, affect. You never see that with the winning team. Let me just say that.
Right. Someone gets a speeding ticket. Someone gets
Arrested for
drunk and
someone.
disorderly, or some sort of part. It doesn't seem to be on the winning side, whether it's
Yeah.
a factual thing or karma or what it is. It just something's not right. And for Kansas City to only be at the site for a couple days and something like this happens, yeah, that's. It was something that maybe you had to consider. Um, that that is Reed going to be thinking about it during the game? Maybe not, but when things start to spiral and go wrong, it's just not your time. And
Yeah.
Kansas City was out of this fairly early, and unless you're the Atlanta Falcons, you're going to hold on to that kind of lead.
Well, by itself, I don't think that would have been a major issue for a team that had been there last year, right? But everything else with it, and I'm going to take a little bit of issue because it shouldn't have been a 12-point game at the halftime. I said at the time, and I felt like anyone who's ever watched Tom Brady play had to have been saying, why the hell are you calling timeout with 48 seconds left? And they just ran the ball into the line. Let the half end. You get the ball back. You're down 8 points. You get the ball back, go down and score, and it's a one-score game. Or maybe it's even a tie game at that point, right? It wouldn't have turned out that way. It would have been maybe 21 to 9, and you're getting the ball back mid third quarter rather than 28 to 9 at that point. But that was I could have scripted it, and I was telling my family like this is what's going to happen. They're going to run the ball on second down, and they're going to get 8 yards, and then they're going to make the first down, and then they're going to get down, and they're going to get a score, and it's going to change the tide of the game.
Yeah, and the score could have been worse earlier on if Tampa was able to convert on that third and goal, fourth and goal. That amazing stop there by KC, and you think, well, that was their chance. I wasn't against them going for it on fourth down if I'm rooting for Tampa, but to not get it or missing it by inches.
I don't know that played into it that much because they got the
No,
ball
it
on the
did, but
35-yard line and they
yeah,
scored 2 plays later. So, or what,
yeah.
6 plays later, I guess it was. But
Well, Kansas City had the terrible punt that didn't
and
even.
that was one of the things. I mean, Jay Feely, I think, was the sideline reporter that was saying like the rookie kicker was like having a terrible, terrible day. There's one good kick was called back, and
That was the one where he dropped the ball, right?
yeah, yeah. And then he shanked. That was after shanking one, and then before shanking the re-kick. That wasn't, that was bad in and of itself. But the other key thing that was definitely just before that was uh, the field goal that was taken off the board with the offsides penalty on 4th and 5, and then they scored on the next play.
I could
You can't do that. I mean,
no,
come on.
no.
And,
I
and
could hear my relatives from the past saying, "Oh, you never take points off the board," but there was a time where they took the 3 off the board and they had 7 in about 2 more plays.
I think it was the next play. They went to
Yeah.
Gronk right after that, right?
I thought they had one that got him down to the 5, and the guy slipped, and then they
Oh,
went
that
to
was the
him.
other
But
play. It was right. That was right. Yeah.
I
Um,
may have my series a bit mixed up there, but yeah,
I
it was
think
it
you're
was
right. I may have it mixed up too, but
yeah. Parts of me were saying, "Oh, you don't take points off the board," and I was wrong in another minute or two.
yeah, I don't have any issue obviously with them taking points off the board, and again, the point is you don't give Tom Brady extra chances, and it's still true today as it was true 20 years ago, or almost 20 years ago. It's unbelievable. And by the way, I loved there's two totally unrelated things that I loved from the announcing during the game. One was the stat that they put up that was the first quarter touchdown in the Super Bowl that Brady had ever had.
Well,
Like
that
what?
was the jinx, right? They said he didn't have one, and then they
Oh
went,
for nine.
yeah, 0 for 9, and then he got one. Yes,
Yeah, with 37 seconds left in the first quarter. So there you go. And the other one was totally unrelated to football. Was when Romo was trying to do the math on how big bad the score was, and he said, "I have trouble with nines."
I have trouble with
And
9.
then like, wait a minute, what?
I have a family member that reminded me of, but I won't go there. She might be listening. Oops, that was a hint. Um, yeah, I can't do subtraction when nines are involved. Okay.
I would have missed that. I have to say, I would have missed that if Vince had to call it out.
Yeah, that was.
Wait a minute, you got what?
Is that 3 scores, Jim, or is this 5 scores? I don't know what's happening. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, but that's what I was thinking. Oh, we'll do a show on Monday instead of one before the game, and we'll talk about all the key strategy moments. There really weren't any. The timeout, yes, wasn't a good use of one right before the half, and Kansas City's got to come
That
out
turned
this.
the game. That was.
Yes,
I mean, I'm not saying that the Chiefs would have won. They
no.
didn't. They only scored one more field goal the rest of the game, but it went from being a close game to a laugher on that timeout, and it was a stupid call. And I'm not saying that with hindsight. I'm saying that I said it at the time. Don't call timeout.
What could they have done differently in terms of their offense? Their offense worked beautifully all year. Yes, they had these problems on the line. What could have solved it? Leave another guy in to block or run the ball more, roll Mahomes out more? Was there anything they could have done, or Tampa was just that good?
I would have liked to see them try some misdirection, some trick plays. It Tampa was that good to start with. I mean, their defense. You and I talked about this the other day. Uh, Brady wasn't joining a team of stiffs.
No.
The 538.com article suggested that the Buccaneers had, by one measure, and I forget exactly how they put it, the most talented team in football last year, and they went 7-9. What they obviously were missing was a quarterback, and this is again, you've heard people say, a testament to all those teams who said, "Hey, we just need a quarterback, and we're there." Well, yeah, and I know Brady picked this team on purpose because he knew they had a chance to win it with him. It wasn't, oh, I'm going to go to Tampa because they made me an offer.
Does Brady come back, do it again next year, or who would you like in the NFC, the AFC? Where do some of these quarterbacks settle in? What do you think?
It'd be funny for his myth and his legend to go somewhere else and do it again. And it might be good for him too because it is hard to repeat, right? I mean, he's got to know that. And it goes back to the first person I heard say it was Pat Riley, the winner's curse. Back with the Lakers in the '80s. It's really hard to get guys motivated to go back and do it again.
Yeah, I hear these guys like Sue and Pierre Paul, and um, are they going to play as well as they did this year? Not just in the Super Bowl, but in general. And Leonard Fournette, who had a good game last night. I think Brady will stay there, but will Gronk stay put, or will Gronk retire again? So they do have a lot of question marks. I think repeating will be tough for them. Is KC able to survive this?
Casey can survive, but they obviously were shown, their defense was suspect. They that's one thing that you can't explain away. Their offense didn't really put their defense in that many. Their special teams put their defense in a few bad places, positions, but um, the defense looks suspect. I never really thought that the Buccaneers, after the first two series, the Buccaneers basically had their way with them.
Yeah.
And I thought while they were doing it that those first two series were, just a boxer feeling out the other boxer. It wasn't. They weren't at all concerned that they weren't moving the ball. It was, this is
No.
what we're going to show you, and then we're going to do something else, and you're not going to, and you just could see it coming.
Yeah. And
So to answer your question on the Chiefs, I think they have trouble. I think they're going to have trouble keeping everybody together because people, after you win, and particularly in the NFL, not only staying motivated, but people want to get paid. And people always think, "Oh, you couldn't have done it without me," rather than what Brady saw when he went to Tampa Bay was, "I want to go win with Brady." Whoops.
so I guess the way I'll phrase it is, did Kansas City peak?
They may have. Obviously yesterday wasn't a peak. The game wasn't a peak because of the injuries we talked about, in particular the offensive line and Mahomes' toe. Um, but I think it's going to be hard for them to keep Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Sammy Watkins and Chris Jones and Frank Clark and Tyrann Mathieu. All those guys are going to want to get paid like they're stars, and they're not going to be able to pay all those guys. And that's
Right.
the same thing that happened with the Seahawks. It's one of the reasons why it's so hard for people to repeat now is that you have a distinct advantage when you're paying a quarterback on his rookie pay scale. Well, Mahomes is not on his rookie pay scale anymore. He's making what, 40 some $million a year, $50 million a year. Okay, is he worth it? Probably. Is he going to get him back there? A pretty good chance of that. Real
Yeah,
close.
and as a team that's shopping their quarterback, perhaps, or at least taking incoming calls, a fan of the Jets. I don't know where they're going to end up at quarterback. They have a lot of draft picks, but do they go searching for a quarterback in the draft, or try to pick one up in a trade, or stick with Sam? And when you have no quarterback, you really have no shot to get there. And when you have one that's not on the rookie scale anymore, you got to pay him so much that it's hard to surround him with enough talent.
And that's where, so the other way you can win is to get, that veteran quarterback that you don't have to pay, 20, $30 million to. And that's where I think somebody like a Teddy Bridgewater, I don't remember how much money Teddy Bridgewater made this year, but he's a very talented quarterback who, in the right spot, could potentially be a guy that could be, then I hate to use the obvious example, but the next Trent Dilfer, right? The next Joe Flacco, um, who can take a team that is a great team around him and take them to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, which teams that are generally drafting as high as the Jets are, Jacksonville is, that's not enough talent there. So a guy like the guys you just mentioned would get killed in that spot. Or at best, they'd be able to really improve things and win 4 or 5 games.
Right. No, you need to, again, it's similar to what Brady stepped into, and I'm not comparing Brady and Bridgewater talent wise or career wise or anything, but possibly at this point in their careers, they there might be a not ridiculous comparison to make, that Bridgewater might be a poor man's Brady in terms of talent, where you would never make that comparison at any other point in their career. Um, but but if you're Indianapolis, you got a very good team. You had Phil Rivers. He was close, um, to being a difference maker, but he wasn't quite there, right? So I'm not saying Indianapolis is today's Tampa Bay, but or next year's Tampa Bay, but
Why
that's
can't they be?
yeah, with maybe a little bit more improvement around the quarterback and another Phil Rivers, assuming Rivers is retiring, that I think is a done deal.
Yeah, you go
Uh,
pick up Carson Wentz or Sam Darnold.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know about those two. Wentz, maybe. I've always been a little suspect of him, and now that he's had a couple bad years in a row, yeah, I'm not sure if he's the guy particular, but that someone like those guys, right?
Yeah, in their type, and you have some younger guys in the AFC, especially that look to be quite talented. And if Jacksonville has the first pick and the Jets have the second, and they both go with young quarterbacks, we're gonna have some darn exciting quarterback play in the AFC for years to come. At least it looks that way.
Yeah, yeah. It should be interesting. I think the Jags are going to have looks like a franchise quarterback, and hopefully for a long time. If you're a Jaguar fan, I don't know any, but you never know.
You never know.
Must be some somewhere. Um,
There were
and
enough Tampa Bay fans. We didn't know them in the '80s, but they're around now.
yeah, well, the creamsicle uniforms were tough. That was
Can't beat them.
yeah, yeah. I think they went right with the Houston Astros rainbow uniforms. That was yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, your compare. I hadn't thought of your comparison of Kansas City to the Seahawks, and that they had a chance for back to back, missed it, and then never got that close again. And you would have thought at the time, oh, Seattle will be back here all the time. They'll Wilson will have 3 or 4 more chances at this, and you it's hard to explain to those guys, this is your chance. You can't mess it up. You can't have a game where you don't show up. And the Chiefs had one of those, and they may not get back with talented teams like Buffalo and these young quarterbacks I mentioned. May not be so easy for KC.
Yeah, and it goes back to one of my theories you probably heard me talk about is that if you can convince somebody, that I think the myth of Brady the untold part of it is that he was never the highest paid quarterback in the league, and he was never even in the top five, I think. Um, and that didn't always translate to more talent on the field, but it did obviously enough, right? And I always compare that to Michael Jordan's Bulls. In his first three rings, Jordan was the fifth highest paid Bull.
Yeah,
Think about that. And now
I'm
he's making $200 million a year off the field, off the court,
that's hard to believe.
because
Both
people
things are hard to believe.
consider him the best ever. Was
Yeah.
he? Yeah, I'm not saying he wasn't, but he clearly knew the value of winning. And guys today, I'm convinced, Eli Manning, Peyton Manning in particular, they went after every last dollar, and both on and off the field, and it cost the team. And I think that it cost the team in terms of being able to keep talent on the field. And particularly, you go back to the Seahawks. Richard Sherman gone, Marshawn Lynch gone. I don't know that team well enough to Javon, not Javon Curse, the wide receiver.
Enough receivers leave as well. Yes.
Um, it's very hard to keep that team together when you're paying the quarterback, whatever it is, 20% of your team's salary cap. It's just tough, and that's where the Chiefs are looking at right now. Is Mahomes that good? He seems like he's that good that he can take that team anyway. But I would have said the same thing about Aaron Rodgers. I would have said the same thing about Drew Brees. Um, they seem like they're that good. They've had great careers, Hall of Fame careers. How many rings they got?
Yeah.
They each got one, right?
One each. So, with the game not being all that great, what was your favorite commercial?
Uh, my my favorite commercial actually was the Blake Shelton Gwen Stefani commercial.
I know
Uh,
you're a big Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani fan.
I yes, absolutely.
Fans of them both. I was trying to pluralize that correctly, and I
The
mangled it. But
I don't even know what I do know Gwen Stefani was in that band that I used to like. No doubt, no doubt. They had that one
I
song.
was letting you come up with it.
Uh, it wasn't Natalie Merchant and the other
No, and the Maniacs. No.
999 Maniacs. Similar. Um, I couldn't tell you a single Blake Shelton
Oh, come on.
song, but
It's
it
just
was a funny commercial. The most of them were missing. A couple of the ones that I thought tried to be touching were good. I love the one about the swimmer without the legs.
yes,
That was
yes. That one.
good.
That one tugged at the heartstrings. I liked some of the classic commercials or attempts to be classic. I realized that I missed the Bud Bowl, but
Yeah,
a
the Real
lot of
American Heroes guy was back.
yes.
That was awesome.
Yes, I didn't know he was coming, but there he was, a bit weathered, but he did show up. He made two appearances in the same ad, so yes.
They said you couldn't build a foot long hot dog. They said they couldn't make it 12 inches, but you wanted to go longer. Thank you for giving us what we all wanted, a longer wiener.
The real man of genius,
Real men of genius.
real American, or was it real American hero?
I
I
think it
don't
was both. I think they were both.
know, something along those lines.
That
Well,
was a good one.
with our next show, not exactly sure when that will be, but we'll discuss what happened or didn't happen with the Mets not getting Bauer, and we'll see what's in the new in the sports world then. But an underwhelming Super Bowl, but we wanted to chat a bit about it, and we'll get back either later in the week or next week with whatever's happening in the sports world.
Wait, the Mets didn't get Bauer?
No, the Mets did not get Bauer. I think you're aware of that.
Thank God for that.
Well,
Just walking down the street singing. Snapping her fingers and shuffling her feet singing. She looked good. She looked fine.